The shrieks came first, high-pitched and desperate, cutting through the sterile hospital air.
Something is inside me. For the love of God, get it out.
The woman thrashed on the operating table, her pregnant belly grotesquely moving. Not with the gentle kicks of an unborn child, but with frantic, skittering movements, like thousands of tiny legs scratching from within. 4 nurses pinned her limbs while Dr. Mensah prepared the ultrasound, his hands trembling as he applied the gel. The screen flickered to life, and what they saw made the room fall silent. Maggots, thousands upon thousands writhing in perfect unison, forming the unmistakable shape of a fetus. Dr. Mensah stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of instruments.
Nyame betwa woka,
he whispered. May God repay your debt. The woman's eyes rolled back as she went limp, but her lips kept moving. The words that emerged weren't hers. Too deep, too ancient.
This is what happens,
the voice rasped,
when you shatter what is sacred.
6 months earlier, Trudy stood before the full-length mirror in the master bathroom of her Accra home, staring at the thin pink line on the pregnancy test, her 7th negative result this year. Tears streamed down her face as she heard her husband's footsteps approaching. Kojo appeared in the doorway, his white coat still on from his shift at the fertility clinic, where he was chief physician. His expression hardened when he saw the test in her hand.
Again?
He asked, his voice carrying that familiar edge of disappointment that cut deeper than any knife. Trudy nodded, unable to speak through her tears.
We'll try again,
Kojo said flatly, but his eyes told a different story, one of growing resentment toward her defective body. Trudy turned away.
Maybe we should consider other options,
she whispered.
There are no other options,
Kojo replied sharply.
I've reviewed your case personally. The problem is psychological. You're too stressed.
But what if?
I'm the doctor, Trudy, not you.
He loosened his tie.
I have a conference call with London. We'll discuss this later.
After Kojo left, Trudy collapsed onto the bathroom floor. 7 years of trying. 7 years of temperature tracking, hormone shots, and scheduled intimacy that felt more like medical procedures than acts of love. 7 years of watching Kojo grow increasingly distant, his tender touches replaced by clinical assessments. Her phone buzzed, a text from her grandmother in the village. Trudy, come home. There is trouble. The village hadn't changed. Chickens scattered as Trudy's sleek car crawled down the dusty road toward her grandmother's compound. Women carrying water on their heads paused to stare. The city girl had returned. Grandmother Ya sat on her wooden stool grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle. Though over 90, her eyes remained sharp, missing nothing.
Finally,
she said without looking up.
You stopped running from who you are.
Trudy embraced her grandmother, inhaling the familiar scent of shea butter and wood smoke.
I'm desperate, Nana. Nothing works.
Grandmother Ya studied her face.
Your womb is not broken, Trudy. It is waiting.
Waiting for what?
The old woman stood with surprising agility and disappeared into her hut, returning with something wrapped in kente cloth. She unwrapped it slowly, revealing a wooden figure, an Akua'ba doll with the characteristic flat circular head and stubby arms.
This has been in our family for 6 generations,
she said.
Every daughter who carried it became a mother.
Trudy stepped back.
Nana, I appreciate the gesture, but Kojo would never...
Your husband's science is powerful,
Grandmother Ya interrupted,
but incomplete. This is not about belief, Trudy. It's about respect.
She pressed the doll into Trudy's hands. The wood felt unnaturally warm, almost alive.
Guard it well,
the Grandmother Ya warned.
The doll is not just for fertility, it's protection.
Protection from what?
The old woman's eyes darkened.
From what waits in the spaces between the hollow child. It hungers for wombs that reject our ways.
A cold sensation crept up Trudy's spine.
You're scaring me, Nana.
Good.
She replied.
Fear keeps us alive.
Adwoa, a nurse at Kojo's clinic, watched him examine another patient's ultrasound, his brow furrowed in concentration. She'd worked with him for 3 years, but had only recently begun to see beneath his composed exterior.
Your wife called again.
Adwoa said, handing him a stack of files.
She asked if you'd be home for dinner.
Kojo barely looked up.
Tell her I'm reviewing cases.
Adwoa hesitated.
Dr. Mensah could handle them. It's your anniversary.
His head snapped up.
Who are you to manage my schedule?
Sorry, doctor.
She said, stepping back. After Kojo strode away, Adwoa opened the top file, Trudy's medical records. Something caught her eye. Notes in Kojo's handwriting about subjects' cultural regression and superstition's impact on conception. He was studying his own wife like a lab specimen. That evening, Trudy placed the Akua'ba doll on the small altar she'd created in her walk-in closet, hidden from Kojo's judgmental eyes. She followed her grandmother's instructions, whispering prayers in Twi, her mother tongue that had grown rusty from disuse.
Asaseya, Earth Goddess, open my womb.
She chanted, pouring libation at the doll's feet. The doll seemed to watch her with its minimalist facial features, ancient and knowing. For the first time in years, Trudy felt a connection to something beyond herself, to generations of women who had carried this doll, who had struggled and triumphed. A door slammed downstairs. Kojo was home earlier than expected. Trudy quickly covered the altar with clothes and hurried down, but she was too late. Kojo stood in the kitchen, holding the herbs her grandmother had given her.
What is this?
He demanded.
Just eat.
Trudy lied.
Don't insult my intelligence.
He sniffed the mixture.
Fertility herbs from the village.
My grandmother thinks they might help.
Kojo threw the herbs into the trash.
I'm trying to help you with modern medicine, and you're sneaking around with witch doctor remedies?
It's not witchcraft. It's our heritage.
Our heritage!
Kojo laughed bitterly.
My grandfather died fighting these superstitions. I won't have them in my house.
Trudy's chest tightened. For 7 years, she'd suppressed her identity to please him. For 7 years, she'd endured his subtle condescension, his dismissal of her family's ways.
I want a baby.
She whispered.
I'll try anything.
Not this.
Kojo said firmly.
Not in my home.
Something inside Trudy snapped.
Your home? I gave up my career for this marriage. I've let you prod and test me like one of your lab experiments.
Kojo's expression darkened.
Is that what you think? That I've been experimenting on you?
I've seen how you look at me, like I'm defective, like I'm failing you.
A tense silence hung between them.
Where else have you hidden things?
Kojo demanded. Before Trudy could stop him, he stormed upstairs. She raced after him, but he was already throwing open closet doors, pulling out drawers.
Kojo, please.
He stopped abruptly at her closet, staring at the small altar now exposed. The Akua'ba doll seemed to gaze back at him in silent challenge.
What is this abomination?
He whispered.
It's an Akua'ba doll. My grandmother gave it to me. It's for...
I know what it's for.
Kojo snatched the doll, his fingers digging into the ancient wood.
My mother carried one of these. It didn't save her when she died in childbirth.
Trudy reached for the doll.
Kojo, please. It's been in my family for generations.
And look where it's gotten us. 7 years of failure.
The doll isn't the problem.
Trudy cried.
Maybe we are.
Something changed in Kojo's expression, a flash of rage so pure it transformed his handsome face into something unrecognizable.
You bring witchcraft into our home,
he hissed,
and then blame me for our childlessness.
Before Trudy could respond, Kojo raised the doll above his head and brought it down against the edge of the dresser with terrible force. The wood splintered with a sound like breaking bones.
No!
Trudy screamed, lunging forward. But Kojo wasn't finished. He smashed the doll again and again until it was nothing but fragments. Then, With cold precision, he gathered the pieces and carried them downstairs. Trudy followed, sobbing.
What are you doing?
Without answering, Kojo dumped the wooden fragments into the kitchen sink and struck a match. The ancient wood caught quickly, blackening and curling as flames consumed it.
There.
He said, his voice empty of emotion.
Now, we can focus on real solutions.
As the last piece turned to ash, the air in the kitchen seemed to thicken. A faint scent, like rotting meat, drifted through the room, gone almost as quickly as it came. That night, Trudy slept in the guest room, crying until exhaustion claimed her. In her dreams, she stood in an endless field where the ground shifted beneath her feet. Looking down, she realized she was standing on a sea of writhing white bodies, thousands of maggots, all turning to look at her with tiny human faces. She woke screaming, clutching her abdomen where a sharp pain had bloomed. Her nightgown was soaked with blood.
It's nothing to worry about.
Dr. Mensah assured her the next morning.
Just breakthrough bleeding. Actually,
he studied the monitor with newfound interest.
Your hormone levels have changed. Have you been taking something?
Trudy thought of the herbs now in the trash.
Number.
Dr. Mensah smiled.
Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Your body might be preparing for ovulation.
Kojo, standing in the corner, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. That night the pain returned, sharper, deeper. Trudy rushed to the bathroom, where a stream of blood trickled down her leg. But mixed with the red was something else, something white and writhing. A single maggot dropped to the tiled floor, squirming in the blood. Trudy stared in horror as the creature twisted itself into an impossible shape, rearing up like a tiny serpent. Then, most terrifying of all, it spoke, a rasping whisper that sounded like Kojo's name. Before she could scream, the maggot burst into flame, burning a pinhole in the white tile before turning to ash. 3 weeks later, Trudy sat in stunned silence as a different doctor confirmed the impossible.
Congratulations, Mrs. Agyekam. You're pregnant.
Kojo's expression shifted from disbelief to triumph.
Are you certain?
The doctor nodded, pointing to the screen.
About 6 weeks along. Everything looks normal.
But nothing felt normal to Trudy. Each night, the pain grew worse. She felt movement inside her, too early for a 6-week fetus. Sometimes when she was alone, she swore she could hear whispering from her womb, words in a language she didn't understand, but somehow comprehended.
We are making ourselves at home.
More maggots appeared, in her underwear, in the shower, in her food. But whenever she tried to show Kojo, they vanished, leaving her looking hysterical.
It's normal to have anxiety,
Kojo assured her, his voice taking on the clinical tone he used with patients.
First-time mothers often experience psychosomatic symptoms.
This isn't in my head.
Trudy screamed, lifting her nightgown to show him the writhing movement beneath her skin. But by the time Kojo looked, her belly was still. Kojo prescribed bed rest and mild sedatives. He began recording their conversations.
For your treatment plan,
He explained. But Trudy found his notes.
Subject exhibiting classic delusions stemming from cultural guilt.
He was building a case study, using her breakdown as research. At the National Museum where Trudy had once worked as a curator, Elder Kofi, the night security guard, noticed her distress during her visit to the fertility mask exhibition.
You carry something dark, daughter.
He said, his roomy eyes narrowing.
Something hungry.
Trudy froze.
What do you mean?
I've seen it before.
He whispered.
The hollow child. It comes when we forget the old ways.
Trudy's hand went to her belly.
You know about this?
Kofi nodded solemnly.
Many years ago, I was apprenticed to an okomfo, a traditional priest. We were called to help a doctor's wife who had the same affliction.
What happened to her?
His eyes clouded.
We were too late. The hollow child had already taken root.
How do I stop it?
Elder Kofi pressed something into her palm, a small amulet.
Keep this close. It won't stop what's coming, but it will slow it down until you can restore what was broken.
That night, the maggots came again, larger this time, their bodies translucent enough for Trudy to see dark shapes moving inside them. They emerged from beneath her fingernails, wriggling free, and dropping to the floor where they formed patterns. Symbols matching those on the shattered Akua'ba doll. Trudy couldn't scream. Her throat had closed with terror. From the bedroom, she heard Kojo's phone ring. His voice drifted through the door.
Yes, she's showing classic signs of antepartum psychosis. No, I haven't published yet. I need more documentation. Of course, I've considered the ethics, but this case could revolutionize our understanding of cultural factors in fertility psychosis.
Rage replaced Trudy's fear. She was nothing but research to him, a subject to be studied and exploited. When Kojo finally came to bed, Trudy pretended to sleep. But in the darkest hour of night, she felt something warm and wet against her ear. Opening her eyes, she saw Kojo sitting upright, rigid with terror. Maggots streamed from his ears, his nose, the corners of his eyes.
Do you hear them?
He whispered, his voice cracking.
They're saying my name.
The next morning, Kojo remembered nothing, dismissing it as Trudy's nightmare that had affected his dreams. But something had changed. He began checking his research notes obsessively, finding pages altered, words rearranged to form threatening messages.
We are coming for what is ours. The vessel was broken, so we make a new one. Your grandfather couldn't stop us either.
Kojo's grandfather. Trudy had almost forgotten Kojo's earlier outburst.
My mother carried one of these. It didn't save her when she died in childbirth.
When Kojo left for the clinic, Trudy called Akua'ba, the nurse who had always been kind to her.
I need to know about Kojo's mother
Trudy said without preamble.
and his grandfather.
There was a long pause.
I shouldn't.
Please,
Trudy begged.
my life depends on it.
Later that day, Akua'ba arrived with a weathered file.
I found this in the hospital archives.
She said, glancing nervously over her shoulder.
Dr. Mensah doesn't know I took it.
The yellowed papers documented 3 cases from 50 years ago, all women who died during pregnancy after their husbands destroyed Akua'ba dolls. The attending physician in each case, Dr. Emmanuel Agyekum, Kojo's grandfather. The final page contained a suicide note. The hollow child comes for the 3rd wife. I cannot stop it. May God forgive me for my arrogance. Kojo returned home to find Trudy packing.
What are you doing?
He demanded.
I'm going to my grandmother
Trudy replied, not looking at him.
before it's too late.
Don't be ridiculous. You need medical supervision.
What I need
Trudy said, her voice steady.
is someone who understands what's happening to me. Someone who won't use me as a case study.
Kojo's face paled.
You read my notes.
Yes? And your grandfather's files?
His expression shifted from anger to fear.
My grandfather was mentally ill. His research was discredited.
Was it?
Trudy lifted her shirt, revealing her distended belly now covered with what looked like wooden knots, the skin hardening into patterns that mimicked the Akua'ba doll's surface.
Or was he right?
Kojo stumbled backward.
This isn't possible.
It's happening because you shattered the doll.
Trudy said.
Just like your grandfather destroyed your grandmother's doll. History is repeating itself, Kojo.
Before he could respond, she doubled over in pain. Something was moving inside her. Not the gentle flutter of a baby, but the violent churning of countless bodies fighting for space. Kojo caught her as she collapsed, his medical training taking over. He carried her to the car, and his hands trembling as he started the engine.
The hospital,
He muttered.
they'll know what to do.
No.
Trudy gasped through the pain.
My grandmother. She's the only one who can help now.
They reached the village as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the dusty compound. Grandmother Ya was waiting, as if she had known they would come.
You broke the vessel.
She said to Kojo, her voice like dry leaves.
Now you must face what you have called forth.
Inside the hut, Trudy lay on a mat, her belly now grotesquely distended, the skin textured like ancient wood. Elder Kofi appeared in the doorway, carrying bundles of herbs and a clay pot.
You.
Kojo whispered, recognizing him from Trudy's descriptions.
Yes, doctor.
Kofi nodded.
I was there when your grandfather died. I've been watching, waiting for the curse to find you.
What curse?
Kojo demanded.
What is happening to my wife?
The hollow child.
Grandmother Ya explained, placing her wrinkled hands on Trudy's belly.
It comes when the ancestors are disrespected. Your grandfather broke the protection once. Now you have done it again.
This is madness.
Kojo protested, but his voice lacked conviction as he watched something move beneath Trudy's skin. Patterns forming and reforming, like thousands of tiny bodies working in concert.
The Akua'ba Doll wasn't just for fertility.
Kofi said.
It was a prison for an ancient spirit that has haunted your bloodline for generations. By destroying it, you released what it contained.
Adwoa arrived breathless from running.
I found more files.
She gasped.
Dr. Agikum was conducting rituals in the hospital basement before he died. He was trying to recreate the doll.
He failed,
Grandmother Ya said grimly.
as all men do when they try to claim women's magic as their own.
Trudy screamed as her belly split open, not with blood but with a seam like wood cracking. From within, thousands of maggots poured out, forming a writhing mass that rose like a wave.
We must recreate the doll,
Grandmother Ya commanded.
or the hollow child will consume her from within.
How?
Kojo cried, watching in horror as the maggots began to take a humanoid shape.
With sacrifice,
Kofi replied.
the doll requires something of great value freely given.
Kojo removed his wedding ring, a diamond-encrusted band worth thousands.
Take it.
Grandmother Ya laughed, a harsh sound like breaking twigs.
Not that kind of value, Doctor. The spirit demands something that cannot be replaced.
Understanding dawned on Kojo's face. He reached into his pocket, removing the research notes he'd been compiling for years. His life's work, the study that would have made him famous.
My career.
He whispered.
My reputation.
Yes,
Grandmother Ya nodded.
and more. Your arrogance, your contempt for our ways.
Kojo hesitated, years of scientific training warring with the impossible horror before him. Trudy's screams grew louder as more maggots erupted from her body.
Choose quickly, Doctor.
Kofi warned.
The hollow child grows stronger.
With trembling hands, Kojo placed his research notes in the clay pot.
I was wrong.
He said, his voice breaking.
I was so wrong.
Grandmother Ya handed him a match.
Say it to the ancestors, not to us.
Kojo struck the match and dropped it into the pot. As the pages caught fire, he fell to his knees.
Forgive me.
He prayed, tears streaming down his face.
I dishonored the old ways. I thought I knew better. The lives lost because of my family's pride. Forgive us.
The flames rose unnaturally high, casting eerie shadows across the walls of the hut. The writhing mass of maggots paused, as if listening.
It's not enough.
Grandmother Ya said after a moment.
The spirit demands more.
Take anything.
Kojo pleaded.
My life, if necessary.
Not your life?
Trudy whispered, her voice strangely doubled, as if someone else spoke through her.
Your name?
Kojo looked confused.
My name.
Your medical license,
Kofi explained.
your title, everything you've built your identity upon. The spirit demands you publicly embrace what you once rejected.
Understanding dawned on Kojo's face. The spirit wanted more than private contrition. It wanted public humiliation. For him to openly embrace traditional practices, to document the supernatural experience in medical journals, knowing he would be ridiculed and ostracized by the scientific community.
I will.
Kojo promised.
I'll tell everyone what happened here. I'll honor the old ways, integrate them into my practice.
As he spoke, the maggots began to retreat, slithering back into Trudy's body. Her wooden skin softened, returning to its natural texture. Grandmother Yar worked quickly, her ancient hands shaping a new Akua'ba doll from clay, mixed with herbs and the ashes of Kojo's research. She pressed the doll to Trudy's belly, chanting words in a language so old it predated modern Twi. The last of the maggots disappeared. Trudy's body relaxed, her breathing returning to normal.
Is it over?
Kojo asked, his voice hoarse.
For now,
Grandmother Yar replied, her eyes on the newly formed doll.
but the hollow child is patient. It will wait for the next generation, for the next moment of disrespect.
1 year later, Trudy sat in the garden of their new home, a house that blended modern conveniences with traditional elements. In her arms, she held her daughter Ya, named after her grandmother. The baby gurgled happily, reaching for the Akua'ba doll that hung above her crib, a new one, carved by Grandmother Ya herself. Kojo joined them, placing a gentle hand on Trudy's shoulder. He had kept his promise, establishing a clinic that integrated traditional and modern practices. His former colleagues ridiculed him, but patients came from across West Africa seeking the healing that neither science nor tradition alone could provide.
She has your eyes.
Trudy said, smiling up at him. Kojo nodded, but his gaze lingered on the baby's unusual birthmark, a circular pattern on her chest that resembled the head of an Akua'ba doll. Inside the house, on the mantel, sat the clay doll Grandmother Ya had made during the ritual. Sometimes at night, Trudy swore it changed position, turning to watch them as they slept. And sometimes, in the quietest hours before dawn, they both heard it. The faint sound of tiny movements within the clay, like thousands of small bodies shifting in their sleep, waiting.